Hey everybody, you are listening to the We Are RIZIN podcast, your source for all things RIZIN and JMMA, news, features, reviews of fights, interviews, etc., etc. This is your host Andrew Benjamin, and I am not joined by J. Christian Gary from Focus Fights right now. With me, I have my fellow MMASucka.com colleague Joshua Yule, who will be talking about Manel Kape joining the UFC. Joshua, thank you so much for talking to me. So impromptu. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me, man.
So it was reported today by Combate, a Portuguese, a Brazilian and Portuguese MMA publication that Manel Kape has signed a verbal agreement with the UFC, 4 fights, and I'm not so sure when it's going to start, but looks like he is no longer in RIZIN, and that would mean no longer the Bantamweight champion. So, Josh, I'm going to throw this to you. Why do you think Manel Kape signed, and what is this? What level of a signing of this is? How good is it for UFC?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say almost certainly to his money. UFC can outbid anyone else by quite a substantial margin. And as for how good a score he is, he's fantastic. Really on a fantastic streak. RIZIN's probably got the second most competitive bantamweight division in the world after UFC. And just a fantastic score. I mean, unless you count Demetrius Johnson fighting at 135 in one as being bantamweight, but that's allegedly due to one's hydration rules, and he's technically still a flyweight. But just a fantastic choice. He has an early loss in his career, but after that, the only people he's lost to are Horiguchi, Asakura, and Sasaki, who are all pretty good. Especially Horiguchi and Asakura. And he's just avenged that loss over Asakura before he got taken off. So another fantastic addition to the super, super stacked UFC bantamweight division.
It's actually funny you bring up his losses. You know, the first loss was to Horiguchi, which, that's Horiguchi. Losing to him is, that's not a big deal because Horiguchi beats virtually everybody. The Asakura loss was interesting because I thought he won the initial fight. I don't know if you have seen the fight or if you have, if you've watched it recently. I watched it before the rematch. I thought that Manel Kape won the fight on the second viewing, and then the fight with Sasaki. Apparently, when the fight went down was when his mother died. So apparently, I guess it's kind of like when GSP lost to I think it was Matt Serra in the first fight. Apparently, that's his father died. Apparently he was in a bad mental state. And we got to see how he obviously rebounded from that loss as well. So, changing his fight camp to AK Thailand, which definitely helped as well. So, so RIZIN has lost a number of people right now to UFC. A lot of people who have gone on who have been successful. Crone, Jair Rosenstruck, Khalid Taha, Jiri just signed. He hasn't debuted yet, but he's definitely going to be, I presume, a big player in UFC. What can RIZIN do in your views? Obviously, money is the number one, but besides that, what can RIZIN possibly do to help keep these talents in the organization and not leave and go to UFC?
Well, you may have noticed one thing I think is pretty important about all those people is that none of them are Japanese. You've got Yair from Brazil. Not Brazil. Yair's Mexican, isn't he? You've got Jiri. Where's Jiri Porchenza from? Because he's not Japanese.
Czech Republic.
Yeah. So now you've got Manel Kape, who is from, I believe, Angola. So whereas they're keeping all the people who are Japanese, even people like the Asakura Bros and Horiguchi, they aren't leaving. Kape does. So I think maybe some fighters are going to RIZIN maybe they're going through, and then when they get the belt, they're using that as leverage for better deals from other organizations. I'm not just a random prospect. I'm the champion of Bantamweight at RIZIN. How much are you going to pay me?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for the Japanese fighters, when they get the belt, they stay in Japan, because I think that's what it is giving to them. It means they can fight from their home. I know that Horiguchi was very vocally said that he felt he was being badly treated in the UFC and felt that he was being better treated in RIZIN. And so I feel that's what it can offer, a home field advantage. But conversely, that means there's some fighters it just isn't going to appeal to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In Japanese.
I also... sorry, go ahead.
So as for what it could do differently to keep people, I think the problem is really it is going to be money, and there's nothing RIZIN can really do about it, because they had a pretty bad ratings hit for RIZIN 20. So they're kind of, maybe in the past they could have kept people, but definitely not now.
Yes, yeah. Would you also, when in the MMASucka chat, you also had another theory behind why Kape might have signed, and do you want to just talk about that? Because I thought that was a very interesting idea about why he also may have signed.
In retrospect, it is a bit mean, and I don't want to cast aspersions upon RIZIN's leadership, because first I was shocked, because if one of your champions is leaving, you really, really want to keep them. Jiri leaving, maybe the light heavyweight division isn't as important to you, but the bantamweight division absolutely is, if you're RIZIN. So obviously you'd have to you'd throw everything trying to keep Kape on board until you can get the belt off him and onto someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that brings me round to what I was possibly suggesting, is maybe they let Kape leave because maybe they don't think, he's just gone on a 3 KO winning streak. Maybe they can't get the belt off him. Maybe he keeps the belt for a while, and because they're Japanese, it's much easier to sell Horiguchi and Asakura, especially Asakura, because him and his brother Mitsuru are becoming pretty big YouTube sensations, definitely two of the biggest potential stars for RIZIN in the future. Horiguchi also a big star. So maybe they just let Kape leave, because that way they can guarantee that the belt comes back into someone they can market for. But I have no idea. There's a long history also of foreigners being big stars in Japan. The most, I think, viewed in-person fight ever was Akebono versus Bob Sapp. And Bob Sapp was a huge star in Japan, so maybe I'm just talking out my ass, but...
No, it's a good point. I think, though, like that era of Pride in K1, it was a different time where you kind of could, in Japan, have these I guess, freak show foreign stars like a Bob Sapp or Wanderlei Silva, just because they were so out of the box. But it seems like that doesn't seem to be the thing that's in Japan. You also see that with pro wrestling now as well. In do you follow New Japan Pro Wrestling at all, or Pro Wrestling Japan at all?
I'm afraid I don't know. Sorry.
Okay. Well, it used to be, much bigger guys, people like Bob Sapp, and who used to be who were popular guys in pro wrestling, but now they've kind of changed the general look of the main eventers in New Japan Pro Wrestling, the biggest pro wrestling organization in Japan, now look more like J-pop idols. They're muscular, but they have like a very J-pop type of aura to them, if that makes sense. It's
so what you'd call cruiserweight in pro wrestling.
Oh yeah, the biggest guy in New Japan Pro Wrestling in terms of main eventer is Okada. He's 6'3", but he's a lanky 6'3". He would never have been a heavyweight 15, 20 years ago of main eventing Tokyo Dome against Inoki or one of those guys. He would never have been in there. He would have been in the mid card. but just because he's tall, blonde, well, dyes his hair blonde, good looking, he's now he's a main eventer for them, and I guess that's kind of where Rise is also right now. They're trying to get these kind of more, I guess, realistic or more homegrown stars to be, so they could go on television, promote themselves on television, go on the Japanese talk shows, game shows, variety shows. That's the impression I'm getting. Now, what do you think will be Kape's first fight, or who do you think would be a good fight for him in his debut in the UFC?
Well, honestly, you probably could throw him. I'm thinking you might be able to say, should we throw him in the rankings early, because he is coming off as a champion from a fairly prestigious division you can get from like outside of the UFC. So throwing him against someone like, let me look. Song Yadong's just had his fight with Cody Stamann. You probably want Song Yadong fighting someone else who's also pretty exciting. So I'd say, yeah, I think that'd be a pretty good fight if you did Song Yadong versus Manel Kape.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I just thought of this right now because you brought up Yadong, who I believe isn't he from South Korea? I believe.
Let me look.
I believe he's from South Korea. I think he's from Team Busan, the same as
No, he's Chinese.
Oh, Chinese. Sorry, Chinese. Well, actually, speaking of China and just Asia in general, Japan today also announced that they're going to be enacting a bunch of travel restrictions for foreigners. I forgot which countries, but I know that USA was announced and also Italy. I'm not so sure. Do you think also maybe Manel Kape was looking at the current climate and what's going on in Japan and just thought that maybe, who knows when next time I could be fighting in Japan, if UFC is I can move to the US, train at AKA in the United States, anywhere, and that way I can still fight instead of having to go from Thailand to Japan. You think that was also maybe a factor just where we are right now with the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, I'm not a mind reader. If I was in Kape's situation, I definitely wouldn't be thinking like that, because the coronavirus is going to be shutting down all MMA for a pretty long time. Probably, I'd say I would be surprised if we saw regular MMA cropping up in less than 2-3 months. So, and by the time the panics ended in the US, it's probably also going to have ended in Japan. So, and if it hasn't, if the problem lingers in one country longer than another, there's no way of knowing right now. So I'm going to be honest, I think that is actually having an impact on his thinking. Probably not.
Okay, gotcha. Because UFC, despite what's going on, they're still trying to put on shows, and they had the one empty arena show, and I know that today they looks like Tony and Khabib ain't happening, but it still looks like they're trying to get that show off the ground to some degree. I don't know how. Good luck with that. But
I think they're going to delay it. We'll see what happens. I was right predicting that Cerrone would want to be in it.
Exactly. That's why next time I get some lottery numbers, I'm going to ask you for the numbers, because you correctly predicted that on the MMASucka podcast that day. But what about the RIZIN Bantamweight title? What do you think should be done with that? Should it be two bantamweights fighting for it in a vacant match, or should it be a tournament, Grand Prix? What do you think should be the best course of action?
Well, a tournament could be nice, but if I was RIZIN, I would definitely set up Asakura Horiguchi, because that was a humongous upset. Horiguchi was he was a 2-division champion, big star. Asakura's also a massive star. I think that fight could do a lot of, if you put that that could be easily a main event, a card. I think there's no point in my mind faffing around with the tournament. there's, like, basically, if Asakura had beaten Kape, he almost certainly would have fought Horiguchi in a rematch. The only reason they didn't have an instant rematch is because, of course, Horiguchi's, like, knees completely blown out. But it's getting better. I heard he might be back in training. Although being back in training is no guarantee that he's gotten better, but I think that's the obvious next choice to make. Maybe they do a tournament, but I think based on how tight money is, are you going to bet, hey, let's do a tournament, we go under while the tournament's weird away, or do we automatically try to get a big star, the belt on a big star? Because you can't lose with that fight. You get it on someone. That's a huge victory. You can even do a trilogy if Horiguchi wins. So, did they fight before? Or was that their second fight?
This will be their second. No, this would be their second fight if it winds up happening.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, here's
okay.
What?
So that's my.
Gotcha. So, the presumable next challenger that would have been fighting Manel Kape would have been Hiromasa Ogikubo. Do you think should he be at all? Well, if let's just say if Horiguchi is not physically ready for the fights. Let's say if they want to do it, they do want to do the championship at RIZIN 22, in empty arena, whatever. Would you then maybe have Kai Izakura go against Ogikubo, who was next in line, the number one contender, or do you, or is there somebody else that you probably do against Azakura, or anybody else that you have in mind?
That seems reasonable. I think that seems like a reasonable fight, yeah. To make that one, yeah.
And I'm sorry.
I don't think there's any, with Kape gone, with Horiguchi potentially out of action, I don't think there's any, though I think Horiguchi might be ready by the time they get RIZIN 22 around. I think whoever they put in, like, I think that seems pretty reasonable. It doesn't matter hugely, I don't think.
Gotcha. And so, what do you think Kape's ceiling is going to be in UFC? Do you think he can be a Well, that's the thing. I don't know if it's been confirmed whether he's signed a flyweight or bantamweight. Do you happen to know if either one was mentioned or?
That's a good point, actually. A fourth fantastic flyweight who can also fight a bantamweight. That's just insane, isn't it?
Do you think that what do you think his ceiling is? No matter in UFC.
It looks like they are I think they are signing him at bantamweight. Sorry. Go ahead. Repeat that question. Sorry, I missed it.
You think he could ever be? You think he could beat Cejudo or someone like that?
I really want him to have one fight at the UFC before I think about that, because obviously Asaka's fantastic bantamweight, but I really am struggling to try and peg where. The problem is that Cejudo's only ever had one fight at bantamweight, and obviously he became champion, but Kape's never had a fight in the UFC. So that is a pretty tall order. It's possible, but the problem is that their bantamweight is so stacked right now. You've got people like Yan, Sterling, Sandhagen, it's Morales, Aldo now. It's just so stacked. Like, Kape could, I'm not ruling out him becoming a champion, but it's just impossible to know what's going to happen in that division because it's so stacked and so few fights are happening. It feels like everyone's gummed down. So I don't want to make any predictions about that.
I got you. That's fair. Okay, so yeah, I just want to give you any final thoughts about this about Manel Kape signing. Actually, one other question: who do you think might be the next person to sign who goes from RIZIN to UFC? Just a random throw it in the hat guess if you had to think of anybody.
Well, if I was the UFC, who would I be trying to get from RIZIN? Mikuru Asakura. I'd want to get him.
That's a good choice. Oh, that's a good choice.
Because you want someone who can get you an in with the Japanese market. He's going to bring the most eyes. I think that's the guy I'd pick. He's called out Shinya Aoki, hasn't he?
Gotcha. Yes. I mean, that's you picked like the person who I was thinking of exactly. So yeah, any final thoughts on Manel Kape signing with UFC? Yeah, I'm just gonna throw the final word to you.
I obviously we can't know the specifics of the negotiations. All I'm going to say is I hope Rise have really, really tried hard to keep him, because from like I mentioned the star thing, but I also, in that chat, I was also massively shocked that they let Kape go, because letting Porochenza go, you can deal with that, but whenever you let a champion go, you're kind of making the people who are left look like paper tigers a little bit, unless they start showing real visible improvements. You always want to have the champion be lineal. You want to have the champion lose to someone, and then you want to keep that person until they lose to someone else. And you want to keep that lineal title within your organization. That's really important for booking and making that title legitimate. So losing the champion is a huge blow, I think, to RIZIN. Like, a lot of people felt like since Cejudo's win over Demetrius Johnson was very, very tenuous, and then Demetrius Johnson immediately left for one, a lot of people felt like that was a pretty big blow to the legitimacy of the flyweight division in the UFC. So that's what I'm gonna go with. I think that's my final thought. If RIZIN fought hard and the UFC just outbid them, that's one thing. But I think if they didn't fight for him, that's going to be the sign of serious booking issues that aren't going to go away.
No, I agree. And you know, when you see a bunch of people, when you see the rats jump off the sinking ship, you're thinking, "Oh God, something bad's happening. Something's not is rotten in the state of Denmark," as they say. But Joshua, that's all the time we have now. I appreciate you doing this impromptu. I just also want to give you a opportunity to plug anything you're doing for MMASucka, social media, all that good stuff.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at MMA Codex. My tag is Codex MMA, no hyphens or anything. And you can also, just today finished a 2,000 word plus article on the best, worst MMA tournament ever, the 2005 Grand Prix, with 16 of the sport's wackiest characters fighting it out in proceedings that immediately went tip-top. But it's pretty hilarious, it's pretty cool, some fantastic stuff happened, and you just wouldn't see that sort of stuff today. You wouldn't see welterweights fighting heavyweights in an open weight tournament today, so definitely check that out. And it's also a good time to have a look back on a bit of history now that we've run into the drought period for MMA. So definitely check that out on MMASucka. Sucka with an A. So thanks for having me on the podcast, Andrew.
No problem. I know it's late in the UK. I want you to get to bed. And hopefully we can definitely talk to you again about RIZIN or JMA or anything that's going on in Asia in the future.
I'd love to be on here again.
Appreciate it, Joshua. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Hey, and we are now here with J. Christian Gary from Focus Fights to talk about Manel Kape leaving RIZIN for the UFC. Christian, sorry you couldn't join us before, but glad you are able to join us now for part 2 of this discussion of Manel Kape leaving RIZIN. Thank you. my partner in crime.
Hey, man, you're welcome. I wish I could have been up earlier, but of course, Mr. Sandman had other ideas.
That's fine. So, I already talked about it in the previous segment, so I'm going to basically just talk to you, but I'm going to just ask you questions about it. So, overall thoughts on Manel Kape leaving for UFC? Were you surprised, shocked, not surprised?
I mean, to be honest, I was really surprised when it came down to it, because I originally thought that it was going to be Tofik Musayev going to the UFC because, of course, we all know, Tofik is on the UFC's radar. But I did not know that this shit was going to happen until I read the article.
What did you think? What position do you think RIZIN is in now? We've already seen UFC take Jair Rosenstruck, Kron Gracie, Khalid Taha. One has taken, I think, 1 or 2 fighters from RIZIN. You know, they're trying to get attention. But let's just focus on UFC right. Well, let's focus on RIZIN. What does RIZIN gotta do to keep these fighters? I mean, the obvious question is pay them more. They pay them UFC level. But I mean, I think that's an unrealistic expectation. Is there anything else that RIZIN can do besides that to potentially just keep these fighters on the payroll?
Well, RIZIN's pretty much in worry mode right now because, obviously, this is the 7th fighter, this is the 7th fighter that has, had negotiations with RIZIN or has fought in RIZIN and gone to the UFC. Now, without withstanding Chong Wei-Lei, who's the current UFC Women's Strawweight Champion, who faked an eye injury just to get over. I mean, obviously, you got Kape, you got Jairzinho Rosenstruck, you got Yuri, Kron Gracie, Khalid Taha, and shit, I forgot.
Kai Kara France. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the 6 fighters that have left RIZIN just to go to the UFC, whether after one fight or several fights in the case of the others. But I feel like RIZIN is in panic mode because they can't really afford all these non-Japanese talent to leave their nest and go over to fight in the UFC. I mean, that's why, when it comes down to it, I think they might try and do all they can to get Kanako Murata to fight another fight in the RIZIN ring, even though she's the strawweight champion.
Now, I posed this question to Joshua, and he said he can't read minds, but I really wanted to hear your thoughts in that. Given the current situation right now, Japan also announced that they're going to do travel restrictions for many countries, including the United States and some parts of Europe. I know that Thailand right now is under everybody's under house arrest. None of the gyms are operating. That's where Manel Kape trains. I presume he also lives there as well. I don't think.
He does. He definitely lives in Thailand now.
Do you think he was looking at the landscape and made a bigger picture and thought that if this whole situation with the whole pandemic doesn't get fixed, I can't fight in Japan because I may not be able to be allowed in the country. If by signing with the UFC, he can then go to an AKA in the United States, train there, live here, live there, and then if UFC has a show, whenever, they're more likely to put on fights as well. Do you think at all that was any consideration?
Well, to be quite honest, I wouldn't have been surprised if he was thinking bigger picture because, given the current situation when it comes down to the pandemic on the other side of the world, shit is crazy. And I think that, I'm not trying to say he was looking for a way out, but he was trying to find a way to get in, so to speak.
Do you think also that he waited for this opportunity to become champion and to use that as a negotiating tactic, or do you think he was going to be UFC bound even if he wasn't champion?
To be quite honest, to be quite honest, even if he hadn't had the losses on his record to Kyoji Horiguchi, Oka Sasaki, and Kaya Sakura, I would have bet that he would have been UFC bound, even without the losses.
Where do you think his level now? Presuming he goes to bantamweights, I'm going to say.
I mean, it's obvious he is a bantamweight.
But also don't forget also as well that they're signing a lot of flyweights. UFC is signing a lot of flyweights. So I can see them putting him in the flyweight division. But let's presume he's going to bantamweight for now. Where do you think his ceiling is at for UFC bantamweight? Do you see him being a gatekeeper? Does he lose his first 3 fights? Does he go to 0-3, 0-4? Do you see him being a contender, or do you actually see him being champion at some point?
Well, I mean, given his fighting style, there's no way he's going to be anybody's gatekeeper. There's no way that he's going to be anybody's, whipping boy, so to speak. I think that he's going to probably have a decent run. And if he loses, well, actually, I think he's going to have a decent run. If he gets kicked out to UFC for some odd reason, be it, USADA bullshit or anything else, I think that RIZIN will probably open the doors up for him. But if he ends up being a big star, like how Jairzinho is, just for his striking power alone, I think that he has a chance to be a once-in-a-generation talent.
Jeff, you brought up a good point. So let's just say he goes 0-4, and by the he did sign a 4-fight contract, 0-4 in UFC. He gets released. Does RIZIN take him back? Because listen to this. Don't forget, he's champion. He's your bantamweight champion. He gave a speech that sounded like he's going to be in RIZIN for a long time. He's learning Japanese, putting his social media things in Japanese lettering, and now apparently he's leaving the company and going to UFC. Do you even bother to consider taking him back, or is it do you just see it kind of as like, dude, you were our champion, and you just left us? No, go fight, go back to Angola and fight on the regionals there.
I mean,
Or sorry, I just want to add a part 2 to that question. Or is RIZIN just so starved for people, for fighters, that they have to almost take him back?
I mean, if you think about it, we all hope that a fighter doesn't flame out when it comes down to, their potential success. But if he does end up taking L's, if he does end up not getting signed after, the 4-fight deal ends, I can potentially see him going back to RIZIN and finishing out a little bit of a term with them, starting with a New Year's Eve show.
So, what do you do now with the bantamweight title? Tournament, Grand Prix, or do you have just have two of the two people fight off for it? Joshua suggested Horiguchi and Kai Sakura for the vacant bantamweight title.
It depends, but again, you have to realize Hiromasu Ikubo is potentially fighting for that belt too. So I would say, Kai Asakura versus Hiromasu Ikubo for the bantamweight belt, and then after that, have it be whoever wins that fight takes on Kyoji Horiguchi.
The thing is, though, is that you said that RIZIN is in panic mode. They clearly are losing people. They're losing fighters. They've lost already 2 this year, Jiri and Manel, two champions, by the way. And their ratings for the New Year's Eve show were not that good comparative to other previous New Year's Eve shows. So, does RIZIN...
Because of the fact that, they rely too much on being on Fuji TV rather than, pay-per-view numbers.
Do you think that RIZIN almost will forego Ogikubo? They'll pull UFC and say, you're not that big of a star. We need somebody who's going to pull in eyes. And they just do Kai and Kyoji again, and Ogi Kubo has to wait another day.
It would. I mean, they would, but it would also be pretty damn disappointing considering the road that Ogi Kubo's had to travel just to get to this point. Because of course, fighting's all he has. You know, if he doesn't fight, I'm not gonna say he dies, but he'll fall off.
Yeah.
So it's pretty damn sad that, you know, they would basically say that, you know, I mean, it's pretty sad that they would say Ogi Kubo doesn't deserve a shot when he deserves every opportunity in the book.
Now, what do you think a Grand Prix might be an option, or do you think financially right now it's just not the viable option for RIZIN to go?
No, it's definitely not the option for them to do a Grand Prix right now. Maybe down the line when everything clears up, you know, do that Grand Prix. But make sure everybody else is in tip-top condition first.
And also, what do you think? What I mean, what is? Who do you think will be next to lead RIZIN, or who do you think UFC will try to go after next?
Dude, isn't it pretty obvious that they want to get Tawfiq Musayev next? I mean, it's pretty obvious, right?
It is, but Joshua suggested that he said if he's UFC, he goes after Mikuru, and I just thought, you know, that's quite a coup to go after Mikuru.
Are you sure?
Because Mikuru has the popular YouTube channel. He's a name here. So here's the thing. Tawfiq, they already have so many people from the Eastern Bloc. It's almost, it's almost becoming like an Eastern Bloc promotion at this point in UFC. But if you want to have somebody who's a potential successful Japanese fighter, that you go right to Mikuru or Kai even, because they have established names here. They are popular they are known outside of the fight world, and you can easily milk off that or siphon off that. Tawfiq, you're gonna get a great fighter, but you're gonna get a guy. It is quite obvious now that UFC only does super fights now, or fights literally that have to make money in some way. And does Tawfiq bring in that extra audience?
Or, complete mismatches.
Yeah. So do you bring... Here's the thing. Tawfiq is absolutely UFC caliber. He's every promotion caliber. But is the UFC going to spend the right money, to bring a guy like Tawfiq in when there's more upside to Mikuru? Think about that.
I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Because if they wanted Tawfiq, they could have gotten him. They could have easily have gotten him. If they could get Manel Kape that easily, they could have easily gotten Tawfiq. If it was money reasons. So that's why I don't know if the UFC is planning to do some shows in Angola. It's entirely possible.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are,
actually, they're not going to be doing any shows in no country like Angola. No disrespect to that country. I mean, I know they have like a pretty damn good fight history legending on, but they'll probably do shows in Portugal more than Angola now.
Hey, the other thing is that, as far as I know, Angola has not had any of the ripple effect of coronavirus, so who knows? UFC might be doing fights in Angola for the time being.
Shit. But then everybody gonna have to be, checked out for Ebola or some shit.
Oh, yeah. Well, at this point, people have totally forgotten about Ebola. Just overall final thoughts. I mean, what about Manel Kape and RIZIN? what is there anything else that you think could be said about this situation, Christian?
You know, it's a sad day for RIZIN, especially considering the fact that, oh, by the way, as of the recording of this podcast, both podcasts, we're less than 3 weeks out from RIZIN 22. We don't even know if that shit's gonna be canceled. But still, hearing about this news, finding out about this, and obviously Kombache and MMAfighting.com putting it over, and obviously the MMA Opinion doing the same. I really think that the UFC got a future bona fide talent in Manel Kape, but it's at the loss of RIZIN's expense, and now RIZIN just has to play panic mode, and hopefully they don't crack under pressure.
I hope not either. This is another blow to them. I wouldn't be surprised if RIZIN became a Japanese Japanese fire focused promotion. I would have no problem with that. But there was a lot of fun to see those foreign fighters come in and compete on that stage. But given how the world is, I think we're going to see quite a few more fighters, or foreign fighters, go from RIZIN to UFC at this point.
I see.
Because if they can't fight in Japan or their home country, you can at least UFC will find a way to get some fights up and running.
Yeah, and then when everything pops back up, they're going to be one of the main ones to want to do a show at the Saitama Super Arena.
Yeah, exactly. But with that, Christian, sorry you couldn't join before. I'm glad we were able to get you on to talk about it. This somewhat towering, sad news. Hopefully there'll be better news in the future with a RIZIN 22. Who knows at this point? Bellator just canceled their three of their shows coming up, so unfortunately I don't know how the world's gonna look like as far as May at this point.
Well, I mean, to be honest, it's like our so-called president, just issued a travel ban dating between now and the end of April, which is April 30th. So who knows what May has in store. They say the worst of this pandemic is going to be coming towards us, here in the States, of course. But we just hope that everything will be all right, that nobody will have to continue to suffer, especially myself because I'm asthmatic, but hopefully nobody else will be suffering from this quarantine hell that we all have to go through.
Exactly. Well, we'll be bringing.
But other than that, closing out the show, you can follow me on Twitter at ChrisGary92. You can follow Andrew on Twitter at ABenja1. You can follow the show at We Are RIZIN Pod, and of course the other plugs you already know about.
And we'll be having lots more content as the weeks come up, both MMA and non-MMA related, just to help keep everybody busy and get their mind off all this chaoticness that's going on in the world.